Sports and physical activity in pre-colonial eras. Do we have a history at all when it comes to sports and physical activity? Before the advent of the Europeans in West Africa and Ghana, what was sports like? Well, my intention is to delve into this and share what I've known with you. So, dating back to antiquity, sports in the form of physical activity has been linked to recreation, security, survival, and other cultural activities. Ghana is no exception so far as this is concerned. The Ghanaian physical culture in the bygone ages was part of the socialization process and core to the traditions of the tribes located in various parts of present-day Ghana. Geographical location, security, and occupation to some extent determine the kind of physical activity of the tribes. By geographical location, I meant areas, those living in coastal, pastoral, and arable areas. And for instance, young men were trained to defend and secure their tribal territories. Also, young people whose parents were fishermen were taught swimming, canoeing, and diving. Those whose parents were hunters were taught hunting, and those whose parents were farmers were taught farming. Various games dependent on one's tribe, including wrestling, foot racing, bow and arrow, spear throwing, which present day we call it target games, canoeing, swimming, were keenly contested among men during off seasons or in periods of low business activities. Cultural activities such as drumming, dancing, and singing during special occasions such as festivals and warriors' context were also indicative of the physical culture of the indigenous people. Researchers such as Asari has mentioned that the activities had not only social and cultural value, but also influence the moral and the political stability of the society at the times. So, what came to be known as bush schools, and I emphasize bush schools, very, very relevant, and it's important for us to read more about it, provided a kind of educational setting for young and adolescents who were taught various physical skills and games, history, music, poetry, and civic training. There have been a lot of researchers who have covered these bush schools, and a lot more people have shown interest to understand the physical culture of Ghana and neighboring West African countries. Researchers such as Fortes, 1938, Sampson, 1966, and Watkins, 1943, have delved into this, and I think find time to read more about it. So the bush schools usually set up in the middle of the forest, far away from home, engaged young boys into strict and drilling physical activities meant to prepare and toughen them as they transit into adulthood and they face the vicissitudes of life. So, a sense of tribalistic ideals, which you can also call nationalism, was enforced so that the young boys, were taught to be proud tribesmen, physically strong, and familiar with the native laws of the tribe. So you realize that women were not considered during these activities with regards to the bush school. However, women and girls during these periods were not considered, as I mentioned, for the rigorous physical culture traditions, but were active in certain traditional and recreational games that requires less physical demands, such as ampe, kantata, owari, pimpina, pilolo, sabla, sansakuma, and tumatu. And that's to mention a few. And if you're a Ghanaian, you'll be very, very familiar with these games. Of these games, ampe and owari remains relevant and important to date. Ampe involves facing your opponent, jumping while clapping rhythmically, and then scoring a point with feet extended after each jump in the opposite or same direction of the opponent. Owari, another game, extends beyond the borders of Africa to the Caribbean then due to the transatlantic slave trade from the 16th to the 19th century. And War itself is a board game played by both sexes or opposing pairs, and it uses strategies meant to hone critical thinking. So, in a nutshell, this gives you an idea of what it looks like in the bygone or olden ages. And while there were no written or formal strategies or policies to guide the activities of the indigenous people, the informal traditional education, often passed orally, of men and women, valorizes family and community interest above self-interest. This is just to show that you realize that in the African setting or community, we value community over individualistic principles, which have often been characteristic of the current global capital polity. Well, in Southern Africa, there is a principle called Ubuntu, which also values community over the individualistic demands of modern days. So the sense of community ensure that the physical culture were tailored to the core tribal values, which were security, economy, and health. So having said that, it is not surprising at all to see West African men and women doing very well in the world of sports. And quite recently, and this have been this is evident in the UFC, where you have Israel Adesanya, Usmaru Kamaru, and Francis Ngannou doing very well and showing their physical features or attributes describing West African people. For Ghana, it's important for us to know that the British, especially, capitalizing on the physical demands of our people is not a fluke. It is something that was studied, observed, and realized that if we introduce sports or football or volleyball or whatever kind, the people would tend to like it, and in turn, they can go on with their activities as they intend. So thank you so much for your audience. I hope this provides you with some knowledge. Subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to providing you with more insights about African sports and then sports from the global world as well. On that note, thank you for your audience, and see you in my next episode.